Hey everybody, and welcome to another 90s nostalgia trip where today we're going to be taking a look at a rather fascinating crossover from the 80s and 90s that very few people seem to know about or remember. The time when RLstein, or as us 90s kids know him, the guy who writes the Goosebumps books, was trying to thrill young readers through a much different series, The Adventures of Indiana Jones. Yes, as strange as it sounds, RLstein actually once wrote a series of novels telling the adventures of archaeologist, treasure hunter, adventurer, and without a doubt one of the most iconic characters ever put to screen or paper, Dr. Henry Jones Jr. Produced by Ballantine Books, the series of novels were referred to as Find Your Fate adventures, and were basically choose-your-own-adventure stories where the reader would make decisions throughout the story and follow whatever path they would like, culminating in many different possible endings. Eventually, Stine would bring his own series Goosebumps into the choose-your-own-adventure format, with the relatively popular Give Yourself Goosebumps series, but long before the children's horror series even existed, the author was given the opportunity to create 4 Indiana Jones stories out of what would be 11 Find Your Fate books. The first book came in the spring of 1984 and was called Indiana Jones and the Curse of Horror Island. The title itself honestly just screams RLstein to me, and I love it. The plot summary from the back of the book is as follows. It's your summer vacation. While your friends go to camp or travel with their families, you embark on an exciting journey with your cousin, Indiana Jones, TM, the great archaeologist, to the distant Coral Sea. You are bound for Horror Island in search of a priceless ebony idol, but legend has it that the island is cursed, and many who got here never live to return. What will happen to you? The danger begins before you even leave the New York harbor, and every step of the way, battling hostile natives and savage jungle animals, you decide what to do, which moves to make, as you find your fate. Now seriously, how could any kid not want to read that? Other titles in the series written by Stine include Indiana Jones and the Giants of the Silver Tower, released in August of 1984. Indiana Jones and the Cult of the Mummy's Crypt, released in February of 1985. And finally, Indiana Jones and the Ape Slaves of Howling Island, released in December of 1986. In doing some research for this video, I managed to find an article from 2006 detailing an interview with Stine about the collaboration. I'm not entirely sure when the actual quoted interview was done, but it may have been in promotion for the 1994 re-release of Stine's Indiana Jones books. This was done as a result of Stine's ever-increasing popularity in the world of writing at the time. The books were repackaged as interactive tales of horror, and included the same 4 titles first published in the 80s. The main differences with these new versions being redesigned artwork, as well as RLstein's name being put in much larger prominence on the front covers. According to Stine, when asked about the collaboration, he said, quote, "I'd written several Find Your Fate books for Ballantine, including books featuring G.I. Joe and James Bond. In fact, people sometimes show up at my book signings now with these books to embarrass me. The editor, a friend of mine named Stephanie Spinner, asked if I'd like to try writing Indy, and of course, I said yes. I was a big fan of the character, and I knew he'd be fun to write. The books were interactive, which meant that kids could imagine they were right beside Indy on his adventures. I was given a lot of freedom to come up with the stories, the titles, and the action." Now, for whatever reason, these Indiana Jones books seem to have become mostly forgotten, and I didn't even know they existed until I stumbled upon an image of one of the covers with RLstein's name on it many years ago. I honestly thought it was fake or some kind of Photoshop by somebody just fantasizing about what an author like Stine could do with a character in a world like Indiana Jones. But nope, they are very much real, and a pretty interesting piece of nostalgic history in my opinion. Thankfully, the books seem to be pretty widely accessible if you yourself would like to track them down and see just what an RLstein Indiana Jones horror story looks like. Unfortunately, I don't own any of these books myself, though I do vaguely remember checking a couple of them out from my school library back in the day. So because of that, I honestly can't speak to the quality of the books or the stories, so if any of you guys out there have read any of them, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. But I mean seriously, how could anyone not want to read a book where you team up with Indiana Jones to take on fucking Dracula? It doesn't get much more awesome than that. This is the sort of thing that I really hope I come across more of in the future, as it could be pretty awesome to see what other interesting, forgotten gems or unusual crossovers from this time in history are out there. Like lost treasures just simply buried in time, waiting to be rediscovered for a new generation. All we've got to do is keep on searching for that next adventure, and you never know what you might find. So if you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for many more nostalgia trips to come in the very near future. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting this channel, and I will see you guys next time.